All right. Hi, welcome to the Knitty Knotty podcast. I'm Vanessa, Knitty Witch on Instagram and Ravelry.
And I'm Diane. I'm Freedom for You on Ravelry. That's freedom number 4 letter U. And I am the Knotted Bag on Instagram and on Etsy.
Yeah, awesome. Good to see you again. So what's been up with your week?
So I have been working primarily on that balaclava mask, Mexican wrestling mask thing that I showed last week that I talked about. I was hoping to start the podcast with it on, but it is because I wanted to get it to the person I'm making it for, because it was a commissioned thing. I wanted to get it to him this week, so I probably won't have it for the next episode, but I'll take pictures. I'll show you. Well, I guess, should I just show you now? It's kind of done. I just have to seam up the back. It's blocking right now, so it looks kind of funny. It looks like a big pumpkin. Wait, this is the extra yarn.
Oh, your camera moved.
Oh, I see all the clutter in my living room. Okay, hang on.
That's funny. I love it. It came out so good.
Yeah, it came out great. I'm really happy with it. He's happy with it. I'm impressed with myself.
You did a really good job.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. And so what's your experience with blocking superwash wool? How does it respond to blocking?
It responds fairly well. I haven't had any issues. A lot of what I knit with is superwash, so I haven't had any issues. I find
Does
that
it stretch?
it stretches. Not well, because I knit the Pomme de Pin sweater. That's not how you say it, but the Pomme de Pin sweater by Amy Christophers. I knit that a few
Pomme de Pin.
Yeah, and that was superwash, and it grew considerably. So it does stretch.
So this is my concern. I was actually going to message you yesterday and ask you what you thought I should do, because first of all, I remember last time I said I wasn't happy with the gapes, for the eyes and the mouth. So I did, last night I basically finished up the crown, and I tucked in like the 50,000 ends, and I did my crochet border around the eyes and the mouth. So it really helped it, sort of tighten it up, and it looks better. But when I just wrapped it around my head, it was tight, and I thought, okay, I've got to block it then, because he won't be able to get it on. Not that he has a huge head, but I mean, if my head, I have a small head, so if it's tight when I'm just holding it back, it's going to be tight for him. And then I wanted to fix the eyes and the mouth. So I blocked it, and I decided to block it before steaming it, because I thought it would be easier than, when you have like a double layered item.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So I'm hoping it didn't grow so much that now it's going to be like,
I don't think that's going to be the case.
Worst case, I'll throw it in the dryer or something, because it's superwash. It's Cascade 220.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much done. I just have to seam it. I get impatient with the drying process, so maybe I'll end up using the blow dryer on
anyway,
or putting it in the blow dryer. So and then the other thing is, I'm kind of hemming and hawing about. I don't have to do this, but I kind of want to. I have a considerable amount of the green left, and a little bit of the yellow. I have maybe, because most of that is yellow, so I have maybe half the yellow. I hate these slides. I have maybe half the yellow that I have of the green, and I was thinking of making a pair of mittens, and maybe having I found a very basic pair of mittens that uses worsted, and so I was thinking I could make the base green, and then just have some yellow stripes, or maybe make like a yellow star, although that's complicating it.
That is complicated.
I know. Why am I? I don't know why I would be doing this. Plus, mitts are knitting around, and intarsia in the round is brutal.
Yeah, brutal. Good word for it.
I mean, you can do it. I did a hat for my son. I did two a couple of years ago. I did an owl and I did a fox. I basically used the same pattern and just changed the colors and like the way it looked in the front. And the way it was a really, really neat construction. I love when you learn like techniques on stuff, but because of the construction, there was this part where you would, well, you know, most of it you knit in the round, but I think it was in the front, you would actually go back and forth and do this sort of almost like a short row twist kind of thing to go back this way. It wasn't a true short row, but it was just the way she twisted the yarn was really cool. And then you would go back. And so going back and forth in the front. So you can do it in the round and go back and forth. It's just that you're no longer, like for me, the great thing about knitting in the round, I've said this before, is I don't like purling. So if I end up having to, you know, if I did want to do the star, I could, but I'd have to do the whole thing, you know, kind of going.
Well, you know what else you can do? You can take your headphones out if it's really bugging you, because I don't think I'm hearing you any better with the headphones than I am without.
Okay, I'm going to take them out then.
Yeah, so go ahead and take those out. You could double, what is it called? Not double knit. What is it called when you stitch over the stitches?
Oh, like I know what you mean. I don't know, like a cross stitch kind of.
I forgot what that's called. But you can knit the glove and then with the star, just go over and put the star on top of it. Because that's
not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's how I did a toy for Brenna. It required intarsia in the round, and it had, Brenna's my daughter. She's 7 now.
Yeah.
But so it had a heart on the stomach of the little robot. It was a Rebecca Danger pattern, and it was intarsia in the round. And I read some notes on it, and someone just double stitched. I think it's just called double stitching.
Okay.
Double stitch the heart on, and it gave the same effect. So you can also do that.
Originally I was going to do like stripes, and the thing is, it's not part of what he paid me for. I would just be doing them as extra just because I like knitting and I have the yarn, right? So I could also not make them. I don't know. We'll see what I decide.
All right.
So that was most of my week. You want to talk about something, and then I can,
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about what I have finished, because there's a little bit that I want to talk about on a project I'm working on. So I'm not going to get into that right now. But for finished objects, you asked me to show my Rhinebeck hat from
it was so pretty. It is. I love that.
So this is the Rhinebeck hat that I knit, and I did not use a pattern. I just made up the pattern myself. And the yarn is Joma Yarns, and Joma, and she is a Canadian dyer. And I received her, I'm going to put this hat on because my hair is so messed up, but it's a slouchy hat.
Oh, I love it. I love that yarn. I love pink. I love that yarn and that hat.
So I'm just going to stay like this because this actually is preferable to what I was looking like before. But this is the hat that I knit for Rhinebeck. And that's all I have to say about that. It's a hat. It's a slouchy hat. I love it. Do you have any other finished objects?
Wait, so you said you didn't use a pattern. So do you remember how many stitches you cast on? Is it cast on?
I don't remember how many stitches I cast on. So it's a DK weight yarn. I average about, what is DK weight? Like 6 stitches per inch. So I went off of 6 stitches per inch, and I calculated what I would need around. And then for the decreases, I just kept knitting until I felt that it was long enough to start decreases. And when I started the decreases, I started the decreases doing a decrease row and then 2 rows of knitting and then a decrease row. And then as it got towards where I was starting to slouch the way I wanted it to, then I started decreasing every round.
Okay, so let's talk about something. In your experience, because I find this kind of confusing, when you're measuring for, my hats are always too tight. So I made a really nice hat for my dad. I am a tight knitter, and I usually go up a needle size. I don't even second guess it. I just go up a needle size from what the pattern calls for because I'm a tight knitter. I'm going to try to look at the camera this time. But you know when they say like, it's usually like a sort of a 3-inch, you know, I find for women, it usually says like will fit 19 to 21 inches or whatever. And so how do you measure the head circumference? Would you really truly measure it sort of where you would be wearing the hat, I guess? Or do you measure it this way? How do you measure that?
I measure it this way because this is the widest part of your head. So I know that we don't wear our hats like that.
Right.
So it
You
would
cook.
seem I look like a chef. It's a Mamma Mia. But it works out to be just fine with measuring around here because that's the greatest part of your head. So that's where it's going to go over.
Okay. So anyway, so I made a hat for my dad that ended up being a little too tight for him. And I just find, I mean, I've had success with other hats and they tend to stretch out after a while, but okay. I just wanted to talk about that. I wanted to can we go back to my, my balaclava? I did use a base pattern. Like I didn't create the whole thing. I found a pattern in a book that I went to get at the library. And the book is called, I don't know if I have the title of the, anyway, when I'm done with this, I'll throw it up in our Ravelry group and I'll make a project page for it.
Okay.
In the last couple of years, I've not been good at project pages, but I'll make sure to do them now. But so there's a book called Son of Stitch and Bitch. And so this pattern is in it. And I'd have to look it up online. I can't, the pages that I have are not. But anyway, so I followed that pattern and she does this one, she does like one eye hole and then I think she just like crochets into the middle of it to gather, like to make it like this, like so that it's not one big gaping hole. And I chose to do 2 separate holes instead. And then I created my own pattern in a Word document. I did a table and I just did the math of like how many stitches per inch and how many rows per inch, and then set up all of my table squares, not squares, but you know what I mean, all of the, I can't think of the word. Anyway, but, yeah, Sunday morning. You know what I mean? So that they all, because you really, you can't use perfect squares because a stitch isn't a perfect square. So in order to have it look the way it's going to look in the knitting, you have to set up your graph that way, right? And then, but I did use the rest of the pattern for like the neck and how many rows I was working my pattern on. So that was really important. So that was the base pattern for that thing. So I did say that's pretty much the thing I was focused on. And then I worked more on my my Doctor Who from Fab Funky Fibers. Yeah. The Doctor Scarf. So I worked a little bit more on that. And yesterday I grabbed my loom and I took out the yarn that I had started weaving with. So that was it. That took some time. I just basically, yeah. So I feel like that was the big contribution to my crafting week, was just taking that yarn off the loom. But I'm happy it's done because now I have all of my yarn is ready to finish. I would like to gift this to my husband at Christmas. We don't really do Christmas gifts anymore since we've had our son, but you know, it's nice to just,
yeah.
So I think that's going to be my focus. I guess that's a work in progress. And there's nothing else that I'm actively working on. So I think I'll let you talk and then maybe I'll talk about what I want to knit.
Well, yeah, I have something to say about that too. So I'll tell you what I'm working on. I'm still working on primarily my sugar coated. So I was actually a little disappointed because I thought that I hadn't made much progress, and it turns out that I kind of have since last week. So let me lay this down and kind of roll this up.
Last week it was just sitting on top of your head like this.
Right. And
Wow.
This is where I'm at with it right now.
That is
if we're
gorgeous.
Just to keep in the to keep in the spirit of things, this is where I'm at with it.
Oh, I love it.
But I talked about last week how it had this slip stitch edge. And before I read the pattern and realized that she gave you the instructions on how to do the slip stitch edge, I was Googling and trying to figure out, like, how do you do a slip stitch edge? Well, the way that she does the slip stitch edge is much different from anything that I found on Google. So I was really happy that she explained it. But talking about moving on from this project, which the only new technique in this project that I can see so far to me was the slip stitch edge and the short row. Well, I've done short rows before, so the short row hood wasn't a new technique for me. But when you want to knit something and it has a technique in it that you haven't done before, what do you usually do? And the reason I'm asking is because talking about what I want to knit would be the Groots Cardigan of the Galaxy that we saw at Rhinebeck on the mannequin.
What?
The Groots Cardigan of the Galaxy. I'm going to throw that up.
I thought that was like a grandpa cardigan. Wait, I don't think I saw that. Groots because that would trigger me in a good way.
So I need to throw a picture up. So it's this beautiful sweater that has cabling down the back. The most experience that I've had with cabling is a small, I think it was leg warmers. So what do I do? It has a chart. So do I go for it and just try to pick it up on the sweater, or do I pick a pattern for something else that has cables in it and try to knit that first to see how I do? So what would you do when you pick up a sweater and it has techniques in it that you haven't learned yet?
Well, in my experience, cables are usually explained. So they'll tell you, like, they'll have an acronym, right? Or they'll have a little thing, and then it should, in the glossary or whatever, explain what they want you to do. Because normally it's a pretty simple thing, a cable. Like, you have, what changes is the number of stitches the cable is based on. So you might have it over 4 stitches, over 6 stitches, over 8 stitches. And then what happens with the cable is like you'll have, let's say you're doing it over 6 stitches, right? So then half of that is 3. So 3 will either come in front of the other 3 or behind. Yeah, I mean, you'll always have 3 in front and 3 behind, obviously. So depending on the way they're setting up the cable, it might alternate, it might not. So and we talked about this pattern, you and I think you thought it was all graphed out, but there are charted. Yeah, sorry, the words. But there's instructions as well, right? So it will give you the instructions, it will tell you, and it's basically going to tell you. And so when you get to the cable, you'll have 3 that come in front and 3 that go behind. And that's where you might want to get one of those little cable needles. So, yeah, and it's like a little needle. Yeah, so you can use that when you're starting out. I used to use it, and depending on how many stitches have to go, I might still use it, but it does slow you down. Once you get used to it, you might start cabling without that little needle. I now don't really use it. You get used to it and you just kind of like let them sit out. And then let's say your first 3 stitches are coming forward. You will release the second set of 3, like 4, 5, 6. You'll let them sit in the back. And then with your left needle, grab those first 3 stitches, and then you go back and grab those other 3 stitches. And then they're in position to just knit.
So you're saying it's not that hard and I should go for it.
Well, yeah, sorry, that was a really long answer to say, yes, you should just go for it. But I mean,
no, thank you. I'm glad that you explained it, because it's been a really long time since I knit cables. But see, like, to our viewers, like, this is why it helps to have a phone a friend. to give you the confidence that you need, because I was thinking that I would pick like a cowl or something with cables and try that, but I'm also like really ambitious and I want to just knit the sweater. And let me show you the yarn. So
I mean, you knit that pomme de pin sweater. I don't understand why you're like doubting your ability to do cables. Like it's not, I know it's one of those things that may feel daunting, but it's really not that complicated. It just slows down the knitting because it does slow you down, right?
Now I want to knit it right now. So look at, this is the
Do
yarn.
it. Start right now.
I know, right? I gotta finish this one. Look at this yarn.
Yeah, it's
like
nice.
Gorgeous. There, that's a better. It's this gorgeous purple. And if you like, if I thought that my sugar coated witchy one was a nice witchy purple, this one's even witchier.
Are you gonna put a picture up of the Groot cardigan thingy?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what was the yarn you used for your sugar coat again?
That was Malabriga Rios in the Wales Road colorway.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking about the whole like technique thing. Like, you know, I really appreciate it when, so all the pattern writers out there, I really appreciate it when in the beginning of the pattern, they put the skills needed, like what you'll need, because I came across a pattern that didn't tell me that I needed a certain skill. And when I got to it, I was fumbling, and thankfully I had friends to help me pull out of it. But if I would have
So what would be an example of a skill? Because like I've written 2 patterns. They're not super this is one of them, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah. Shameless self-promotion.
I love it.
Yeah, this is my bundle up cowl, which is basically a chevron in the round.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of used the, you know, is it Jared Flood who did the, he has a scarf that uses Noro. You use 4 balls of Noro, and it's a very simple scarf, but it makes these beautiful, it's just like these beautiful stripes because you switch up. Anyway, I kind of used that as an idea, but then did the chevron in the round, which is not, I had to work on it because when you're chevron in the round at the beginning, there's a kind of like, it jogs a little bit. So you really have to figure out how to make it meet so that it's endless, right? So it doesn't.
That might be a good technique. Have you heard of helix knitting? I think that's what it's called.
I don't think so.
It's like a way of carrying yarn so that you don't get a jog. I haven't looked it up yet. It's something I want to look up. So I will.
Oh, I have done the jogless. It's called I think it's called jogless knitting. For in the round anyway. There's a again, I think it's Jared Flood. He has a hat that I have one here. Anyway, I just found one in my stuff of like winter items that I don't think we've ever worn, but I had knitted it for somebody and never gave it away. But again, it's like you use like a plain Cascade 220, say, and then a Noro, and you do these stripes. And it was when I did that hat that I discovered the jogless, I don't know if it's jogless knitting or jogless whatever. And it's that when you're switching the yarn, when you get to the second row, you kind of grab the stitch from below and knit with it, and it stretches it out, and then you don't get that jog at all.
I think I've done that before, but I keep hearing this helix knitting, so I'm really interested. I think that's what it's called. So I'm really interested to learn what that is. So that'll be something. That'll be a technique that I'll pick up.
We'll have to look it up. Okay, so back to the pattern.
So what I was talking about with the pattern writers. So for example, on the Pomme de Pin sweater by Amy Christophers, the skill that you needed for that was decreasing in lace. I've never decreased in lace before, and it's not exactly the easiest thing either. So if I would have known that pattern needed that particular skill, decreasing in lace, I probably wouldn't have knit it for my first sweater, because it was my first sweater that I ever knit that had that. So I really spent a lot of time fiddling with it and improvising and reading. It took time, like I had to read up on it. So I
Yeah.
just really appreciate it when they list out all of the skills necessary to knit that pattern.
But don't you think that, like, I wouldn't know what
If
that
it's
means
if it's
either.
unusual.
But shouldn't the pattern just explain what you need to do? Like,
It didn't.
if it just said randomly in the pattern, decrease in lace, oh, I think I know what you mean. I think decreasing means you continue in the pattern of the lace.
Yeah, but you have to
But,
take away stitches. So when you take away stitches,
and
you have
she
to make
didn't,
sure.
and the pattern doesn't say, oh, see, that's the problem. I think that's the problem. If the pattern is written out and it says, because I've done patterns with patterning in the pattern, in the fabric. And normally it will say, da 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 at the same time, da 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 da. You know, like when you're shaping armholes or
Usually
something.
they'll tell you
like,
exactly what to do, but this pattern didn't.
right.
So that's why.
So isn't that the problem? Don't you think that's the problem? I don't think it's that you don't have the skills, my friend. I think it's that the pattern didn't explain. It assumes that you should know how to decrease. That's, for me, I don't think we should be assuming. Like, I have, I think one of my patterns, even, I put, like, you know, it's the Be Still shawl, which is like a rectangular, kind of a stole shawl thing that you can use as a dicky and as a scarf. And I put links to, like, what I like is a stretchy cast on or bind off or whatever. So I don't know. I just think that when it's stuff like that, you need to really spell out those techniques. Like, I have, I'm doing a big blanket shawl in the round, and I have a few things in here that I'm borrowing from other, like, techniques that I'm borrowing from other kinds of items, and I'm putting them together so that I can knit this big rectangular piece that opens up, knitting it in the round again, because no purling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make sure that when I get to the point where I have to open up, I'm going to take pictures and I'm going to really explain it, because I know that some people might not get it. So I don't know. I hate that you felt like you didn't have the skills needed, when really the pattern should have written it out and explained it, because it's no big deal to say knit two together. If that's how the designer wants it done, it should just say knit two together, and, you know, it should have an instruction that keep going in the lace. Like, I don't know. That's my opinion.
I wish that it did, but this one didn't.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just pick patterns, you know, or try to pick.
Well, before you buy it, you don't know.
Yeah, that's true. So hopefully patterns aren't like this. I mean, but it's such a good pattern. Like, the sweater is such a beautiful sweater. So I wrote enough notes on that pomme de pin that I could knit it again to myself, and I would kind of remember what I did. But
I think too, like you just said, I think it's important when people who are on Ravelry do write notes on your project page, not just for yourself, but it's for other people. It's for other people as well, right? Because when you're searching for something, because your question originally was like, what do you do when you don't understand something? I mean, I might look through project pages, but like you, I will Google or I'll phone a friend and ask, like, how do you do this? But YouTube is amazing these days. Like, yesterday that you know, to go around, I'm pointing, you guys can't see what I'm pointing at my balaclava. I don't know how to do a crochet whatever. I mean, I have some crochets in my bag, so I grabbed one and I YouTubed it, and that's how I did it, right? But there's no explanation in the project, in the pattern. It just says seam it up and single crochet around the edges. So up to me to figure out how to do that, right? So thank God for, like, people who do YouTube videos, and, you know,
I actually use pattern notes for the sugar coated, because on the hood, one lady wrote that she got stopped up at the hood increases because of the way it was written. And she tried to contact the designer, and the designer didn't answer her back, or wasn't on Ravelry or whatever. So she did it, and she said it worked out. So I messaged her and I said, do you remember what you did? And she explained it to me. So I was able to move along on my pattern because of her notes and her generosity to get back to me. So please, everyone, leave Ravelry notes if you come across something that seems like a little bit complex. This way, if you ever want to go back, like on the palm of the pen, I actually wish I would have written more notes, and I wrote a lot. But I look back and I read it and I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of remember that or how I did that, but I wish I would have even done even more than that so that I could use it again. How often do you knit patterns you've already knitted?
The other thing I wanted to say, sorry, before we go on to that, is the other resource I would use is I always, when I have a question about the pattern, because sometimes I'm like, I just didn't understand that. And clearly it's explained or something, but sometimes it's not explained in the pattern, but it'll be explained somewhere else. So some designers who have a lot of patterns have Ravelry groups. So you can sometimes find information in those Ravelry groups.
Mm-hmm.
And in those cases, they'll often have threads specific to the pattern.
Those are great.
Yeah, so it's important to look up all of those different places, the errata, the project page itself,
Mm-hmm.
like for the pattern page, will sometimes have information. Like, I don't know, I mean, if you're getting a lot of questions, I don't even know which pattern I'm thinking of, but there is a pattern where I had a question and clearly a lot of other people had the same question, and instead of like
modifying
the pattern and updating it, it just said, you know, clarified it on the Ravelry page. And to me, it's like, if you have so many questions about this that it's on the Ravelry page, like, update your pattern, you know.
Yes,
but
I agree with that.
That's just, yeah. You were asking, sorry, how many times have I redone?
Like, do you usually reknit something? Because you guys made fun of me because once I finish a sweater, I like to knit it again. If I had fun.
Did I make fun of you for that? I can't imagine I made fun of you for that.
No, someone did, because like with the Hey Girl cardigan, I knit one and then I went back and I knit like the same pattern. And with the Memories cardigan, this one, sure, I want to knit another one.
Yeah.
And then
I don't think there's any.
I love reknitting them in different colors. So I'm curious to our viewers, how many people reknit their patterns and get good money out of their patterns? I don't. Well, so like the hat that I did for Seth, I did it 2 different ways. So I've done that. I've done, obviously, socks. I always use the same pattern because I love it. The Wendy Knits Go Up Sock with a Difference. Yeah.
I mean, this thing, you know, is a variation of the other cowl. I think that's a really nice, simple knit to use up yarn that you really love. I don't think I've done a lot of repeats, not because I have a thing against it. It's just because I like to try like
different things.
I don't try a different pattern, but there's no reason why, like that my gelato cardigan that I showed last week with the rainbow colors. I really like that pattern. It was really simple. So if I found the right yarn again, I might do it again. I don't know. Oh, I forgot to pull out yarn that I'll show it next week. Should we jump to what we want to work on? You kind of talked about, we've been talking about the sweater you want to work on, right?
Yeah, so I want to knit next, and I have the yarn for it because I already bought the yarn before I bought the pattern. I fell in love with the yarn, bought all of it, so I would have enough to knit whatever it was. So then I had to find a pattern for it, and I came across the Groots cardigan of the galaxy. So that's what I want to knit. What do you want to knit?
So I have a few things. I'm trying to pull stuff up as we're talking. I pulled stuff up before. So here's one dilemma. So this is one of my bag.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and this is one of the few. This is one of the few that I made that is completely reversible. If I have 2 fabrics that I love, and I think would be great and I make them completely reversible, which means there's no seam anywhere. I mean, there are seams, but there's no. So this is the.
Oh, I'm in love.
Yeah.
That came out so good.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so this is a whip that I think I'm gonna frog it. So, you know, we talked last week, when you buy that one skein of yarn, of sock yarn that you love, and then what do you do with it, right?
Right.
So this is, I don't even know who this is, but
it's really pretty.
It's so pretty. It's like, the colors I love. It's got hot pink in it and all of these pretty colors. And so a pattern that I would repeat, speaking of what we were talking about, there's a pattern called Favorite Scarf Ever, which is a chevron. It's very basic. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And I love how it shows off that yarn that you might love.
Oh, wow.
Right? It's
Yes.
just a basic. So my Favorite Scarf Ever by Lisa Bruce. I don't know if I've knitted it before or not, but I favorited it because it's just so nice. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just make a skinny scarf, right? And I cast on one or two less repeats because not knowing how far this will take me.
Right.
But now I don't like how skinny it is. It's too skinny. And I was thinking of frogging it and starting over because I don't have a lot done on it, but it's one of those things where you can just mindlessly do.
Well, if you don't have enough to make it into a scarf, you can just sew the ends together and make it into a cowl.
Yeah. I mean, this
like
is a cowl.
Like an infinity cowl too.
Yeah, I think I'm just not feeling it. So I'm either going to like frog it and start over with a wider, or so I discovered this other pattern that I have been completely obsessing on, and I'm just going to find it really quickly. It's a one skein pattern. I'm just pulling it up, and oh, I'm obsessed. So I think I might frog this and knit this thing. It's called that's where it's published in. Sorry, it's called My Wavelength by Lisa Cook. It's a paid pattern, but it's $250, not euros, but English, I think pounds. But it's like, you see it?
I'm gonna have to throw that picture up. It's a little hard to see, but that looks really pretty.
It's a lacy shawl, basically. And it looks like, you know, we were talking about how we don't love small rectangles.
Right.
But this, because it's lacy, I think it looks
up
quite large. Yeah. And it says in the description, the perfect pattern to use with that posh hand-dyed yarn you've got squirreled away in your stash. Anyway, it uses US 5 3.75 millimeters. So anyway, I'm totally obsessed with this pattern. So I don't think I'll probably start it in this year. I probably won't be until the new year, but I just like it's sitting in my brain and I can't wait to see it. Because I have so many of those one skeins that I don't know what to do with that I've been saving. So I think probably I'll make it first with this one because this is a gorgeous yarn. Before I go on, did you have something else?
No, that's all I have. Except for
the other. Okay. The other thing that I have in my brain that I'm obsessing about, well, one of the other things is the Tiny Owl Knits witch hat.
The witch hat. Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah. So I found this really, okay, I've got that and then just another one that I'll talk about. So I found this yarn. I don't know if you guys, it's a Canadian yarn and it's a little rough. So I don't know how it does wash because, you know, like Noro is scratchy as heck, but when you wash it, it softens so much. It's amazing. Like I don't have any issues rubbing this on my face, but I would never do it before washing it, right?
Right,
so,
it's a little scratchy.
Yeah, but so Noro is rough when you buy it, when you're knitting it, but once you wash it, it completely changes. But since this is the hat and it has to be felted, I'm not worried about the fact that it's not soft.
But yeah, it's perfect for that.
Yeah, it's Briggs & Little Regal. It is 100% wool. It's a worsted. And I didn't want to make a black hat because that's just boring. So talking about purple, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it is this beautiful purple. Wonder if I turn the light on. Let me see. This might not
No,
help.
that washes it out.
No. Yeah, so it's like this really nice, it actually looks a lot like the yarn you're using for your hoodie.
I was gonna say
yeah, it's kind of this purpley blue, I don't know if mottled is the right word, but it's not like one uniform color. So I think it's going to be fantastic for the witch hat. Again, I'm not really expecting to cast this on until the new year. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. So that's the Tiny Owl Knits witch hat. I'll have to pull up the actual name for it, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is off my top of my head, but I know what you're talking about.
She's only got the one witch hat.
Yeah.
Although I really want to do the cat scarf that's in the book too. Yeah, she has all of these sort of magic inspired. Okay, so the other thing that I am obsessing about is the Swoncho that we saw at Rhinebeck. We saw a bunch of people wearing Swoncho, and so that's Ninilchik Swoncho by Caitlin Hunter. I bought the pattern, and so it is a sweater poncho, which is why it's called a Swoncho. And so I actually have all my yarn. I went deep diving into my DK. And I have this stuff from years and years ago. I have more than enough. It's Manos.
I was going to ask if that was Manos because that looks like Manos.
Yeah, Manos del Uruguay. This is the, their colorways only have numbers, but it's the silk blend, which is DK. It's really pretty.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I have more than enough. So that will be the base. This is one of my few not knotted bags. It's by the Fat Squirrel.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's huge. I love it. So that'll be the base. And then again, so there was a Black Friday sale at one of my local yarn stores, and all of the DK stuff was 20% off.
Ooh.
And I had some DK stuff to go with this for the Swoncho, like the colors, but I was missing one and I wasn't super keen on what I had in my stash. So I went and got this. This is Estelle.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
That's showing up. So yeah. Estelle it's Peruvian yarn. Andean DK heathers. And it's younger than me. This is quality hand knitting yarn since 1976. So it's 4 years younger than I am. But anyway, so I ended up, and they're only like, they're $12.99. This in Canadian, $12.99, and these are huge hanks. There's 350 meters. I think that comes out, it's like 370 some yards or 380 yards for $13. It's amazing. And it's I know. And I had 20% off. So that's awesome. I ended up picking up. Yeah. So I picked up, so this is my base. And then I got like a pink and a lavender.
Be so pretty. It matches perfect.
I know. And then I got this sort of moss green, because there's kind of like a moss greeny in here as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this.
I know, me too. We might have to wait a few years. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like a project.
So again, not really expecting to, cast this on this week, because I want to focus on some of the stuff I've already got going. But those are my sort of, I would say, primary, what I want to work on, what I want to cast on next. So
those are some big projects.
Yeah, I'm excited about the witch hat, because I'd like to, if I like it and it works out, I might do it in different colors, like a stripe or whatever. But again, like, we dream. I should probably finish the 2 patterns that I'm working on designing too.
Oh, I need to finish working on just the stuff that I'm working on. I have so many things in my box. I just want them off the needles so I can have my needles back.
Yes. Okay, so you were going to talk about your stash enhancement, the yarn
Yeah,
you've
there's
got.
a couple of things I wanted to talk about. So the first one I'll mention is because you mentioned a couple of yarns that I'm not familiar with because they're Canadian. And I subscribe, one of my favorite subscription boxes is Yarn Crush. We'll have to link that down below. And they have 2 subscriptions you can do. And I have subscribed to both. So I've had the other subscription box in the past where they give you enough yarn to make a project, and they have like little goodies in it. And I'm just never disappointed with this box. So I signed up for Sock Crush. In Sock Crush, you get a sock pattern, 2 or a couple. Actually, it's not only just one. You get a little gift or knickknacks or whatever, and then you get a skein of sock yarn. So this was one good way that I was able to pick up yarn that we can't get in America at a really good price. So this is E of A, Essence of Autumn yarn, and I have never heard or seen this dyer before, and it's really pretty.
So pretty.
So I was really excited about that. And then this last,
so that would be perfect for that one skein shawl that I showed you.
Yeah, and then the most recent one, this is a cashmerino sock, and it's by Red Sock Blue Sock Yarn, made in Canada. And this is the warm colorway I chose. You can choose warm, cool, or neutral. So I chose, I actually chose Surprise Me. So I never know what I'm going to get, whether it's warm, neutral, or whatever. But this is like a orange. So, and it's by a dyer that I've never heard of before. So if you're looking to get yarn that is unusual to America, that's one way. Another dyer I came across on Instagram is Squiggle Yarn Co. I am floored by how beautiful her yarn is, and I think it just speaks to me because I'm an 80s child and I love bright colors. But here are some of her yarns.
Oh, it's so pretty. But by the way, the yarns you've mentioned that are from Canada, I haven't even heard of before. So just because I'm Canadian, doesn't mean, like, you don't know all the American dyers. I don't know all the Canadian dyers, right?
Well, there you go. So it's a good way to like learn new dyers and stuff. And here's another one from Squiggle Yarn Co. I'm obsessed with this.
It's so pretty.
I know this doesn't work out for you because we talked about this, but if you're in America and your currency is US dollars, the Australian dollar and the US dollar the Australian dollar is cheaper for us. So I was actually able to acquire these 2 beautiful skeins of yarn for almost the same price, if not cheaper, than American yarn. So I'm not saying anything bad about American yarn, but support this dyer, because even with shipping, you're still paying less from America than you would if you were, if the currency was different. But
yeah, you guys are so lucky with the exchange, because even like I know people who are Canadian who sell stuff, and they sell their stuff in US dollars. My Etsy shop is set up in Canadian dollars because I'm Canadian. I use Canadian dollars, so I sell in Canadian dollars. The fact that you guys can buy it for less, bonus for you. I don't need to, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I were selling in US dollars, then I'd have to lower the price and make it work so that I'm getting
what you deserve for it.
What I want to be getting. It's just easier to do it in Canadian dollars. Then my Canadian buyers it's easier for them. They're just buying Canadian. And then people around the world and Americans, it's cheaper. So good for you, right? So
well,
it's great.
It was worth mentioning. Here's her band. I thought it was worth mentioning because there's a lot of dyers that I want to buy from in the UK, like Countess Ablaze and all these beautiful UK dyers, but the exchange rate for UK to American is not kind to us. So I understand what you mean with the Canadian exchange rate. So check her out.
Yeah, so imagine UK to us. It's like,
oh, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last thing that I got, I have to mention because it's Kirby Werby, and Kirby Werby, I know Kirby Werby is my favorite self-striping sock yarn, and she hasn't been dying for a while, or hadn't been, I don't know, past tense, because she had a lot going on in her life, and she just had a little girl, so she's dying again.
Like the cutest thing in
Landry.
the universe. Oh
Her name is Landry. This colorway is Magic Moment, for anyone who's wondering, and it's not a reverse rainbow, but it's a rainbow mix, so it's all the rainbow colors in a different order.
Oh, cool.
Cherie I talk about her so much because she was my first experience with self-striping yarn, and we became good friends from that, but her yarn speaks for itself. So if you don't have Herbie Werby yarn, catch one of her updates. She's dying again, and get yourself some. But that's all I have that I wanted to share.
Yeah, and we both love rainbows, so it's very.
I know. I love. I do everything. Can you tell? Like, everything I do is in a rainbow.
I know.
It makes me happy to knit it.
You and I have so many things, like so many likes in common. Like, we love rainbows. We love big projects and big quantities and skeins of yarns and stuff like that. It's really cool. I was looking through my stash, and I found. Oh, because I thought I was going to knit some Christmas stuff for some of my, they're like people I report to, like not my boss, but anyway, whatever. It's complicated. It's structure where I work, but I was going to knit. And then I thought, oh no, I'm not going to. And so I went stash diving and found the yarns. And then I thought of something I could buy instead. So I decided not to. But anyway, when I was looking through my stash, I found, oh crap, and now I've forgotten the name of it, but I found these yarns that I bought again years and years and years ago on Etsy. It's these long gradients and these really cool colors. And I saw it at that yarn store on Friday, and then I thought, I've got to remember the name, and of course I've forgotten it. Now I don't have labels on my yarns, but they're these really long gradients, and you get these huge skeins of like 800 yards, 900 yards on Etsy. He sells them in different, and I have this gorgeous rainbow. I keep forgetting about it, and then I'll see it, and then I'll remember it. But it's the problem is the yarn is rough.
Oh,
it's not
soft. Is it BFL?
I really don't know. You know what? I'm gonna have to figure out the name of it and write it down somewhere and stick it in the bag.
We can show it next time.
Yeah, I mean, not even like it's just I have a lot of rainbow stuff, and I realized, oh, I have that one, but I don't even know what I knit with it because it's I wouldn't want it against my skin, and I don't want to have to knit it to see. I mean, I guess I could swatch it and wash it and see if it softens up at all, but it might have to be some kind of thing that isn't going to be against me, like against my skin.
Yeah, I actually have, my friends went to Iceland, and she brought me back this gorgeous gray Icelandic huge infinity scarf. And I've never worn it because it is so scratchy that I can't even put it against my neck. So I understand.
Did you wash it? Did you try washing it?
I think I did, and it didn't really soften up that much. So I'll have to try soaking it again and see if it helps a second time, but it just wasn't, it didn't soften up. So
next time I'm going to try to remember to pull out these two, because another thing that I have dreams of knitting is a sweater that I have 2 huge hanks of hand spun that I think are going to be amazing for it. So that's another thing that I'm really excited about working on, to make a sweater out of 2 different hand spuns, because it's actually, the sweater is striped. So
let's talk about that next time. Let's get that together.
Okay.
About that next time.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to get back to my Sunday and get some lunch, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Subscribe if you liked us.
Oh yeah. Subscribe and click the bell and make comments in the videos, because we will draw for the first 100 people who leave comments in the videos on YouTube. We will we'll draw for a prize, and we also have a Ravelry group called Knitty Knotty Podcast. So please join us, and yeah, let us know what you think.
Awesome. I'll talk to you later. Bye.